So anyway, we were talking about more historical inaccuracies. In the movie, there is a soldier, Trip, played by Denzel Washington, who was whipped for what they think, supposedly he deserted the army. We later learned that he was just looking for shoes. And we just touched on that inaccuracy of how obviously the Union, the 54th, was never discriminated against. They were always properly equipped with everything. But anyway, back to the whipping. Flogging or whipping was actually not permitted in the Union Army. This was not happening. This event never occurred with any black soldier or any soldier for that matter, unless obviously some officer probably bucked the system at some point, which, as we were talking about with the Patriot, that certainly probably happened, as it does in every army. But in general, that was not legal within the Union Army to whip a soldier. But once again, I think that scene's one of the most moving scenes in the movie. I think that Denzel Washington earned his Best Supporting Actor award with that scene. Yeah. You can piggyback on what I say, but I love he's just like, obviously he's been whipped many times before, evidenced by this wounds on his back. And in the scene, obviously he's innocent of what they're accusing him of, and he knows that, but obviously he doesn't want to speak up about it because they'll probably whip him more. And he just he just stares Shaw right in the eye as they're whipping him, as this pretty cruel, hardened Irish sergeant is just whipping him, who he also was a great character. But and he just looks Shaw in the eye and is like, and eventually the music is playing, that great music by James Horner, and it culminates in a kind of a crescendo or a peak, and at that peak a tear drops from Denzel Washington's eye, and it's just a real moving scene.
I know y'all have heard what I think about the two narratives in the Civil War, and I'm tempted to think that fact check is not exactly real, because I do think that there was discrimination and racism in the Union Army.
According to what I'm reading, it's just I'm referring to specifically the supplying of the unit. They were properly supplied. I'm sure there was, obviously, like in the movie, there was other forms of discrimination.
Right.
I'm talking specifically about the supplying of the unit. Like, they were never not supplied with enough guns or enough.
It actually wasn't even illegal for them to own slaves.
Yeah.
It was only illegal for them to buy and sell slaves.
Yeah.
And so even General Ulysses S. Grant owned slaves. So they weren't exactly the liberators that they've been made out to be. Especially in the context of this movie, most of the people who are fighting in the Union Army, I think that Gods and Generals does a better job of historically accurately handling the issue, because they're all just like, we're here to put slavery as an institution to an end, and that's not at all what the Union Army was thinking. They were thinking, we are going to restore the Union.
There was that one guy, though, the Montgomery, the guy who orders the burning of that village. I believe it's Darien, Georgia. It was during the movie. I was like, I've never been there. And then after they burned the village, I was like, oh, no.
I wonder why.
It no longer exists. But he has a line where he's like, Secesh must be wiped out as the Jews of old. And so, he's obviously talking specifically about secession, but he seemed to be kind of a racist character. So I do think that they showed some racist.
But did you notice he was a Southerner?
Yeah, he was from
Kentucky, so they couldn't even do that.
I wonder. They don't really delve into his backstory, but I wonder how he got involved with Kentucky never joined the Confederacy.
No,
they were technically still in the Union, but I wonder. There were all. The general John. I'm not forgetting his name. John Bell Hood was from Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And he obviously went with the Confederacy.
It went either way, but it was a slave-owning state before the war started, and so I think they couldn't.
I think that character was a bit nuanced, though. There were several racist characters that they did show.
There were.
But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I'm critical of either narrative in that way. I honestly just want the truth about things.
I think that honestly kind of compounds on the positive we were talking about with how they show the division within the Union Army. There's racist individuals. There's characters like Shaw who truly care about the black people, and then there's characters that are just there to do their job, like that Irish drill sergeant guy. And they don't really care about. They're not racist, but they also just don't care about showing a lot of affection. They're just beat these guys into submission, or train them to the best of their ability.
I know this sounds crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This is totally random. I was just thinking about it. You know that I've actually encountered black men who will reenact on the Confederate side?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I never thought I'd see that, but they do. And I even met one individual who wrote a book, and I ended up buying his book later. Or no, actually, a crazy story. I bought his book before I met him. It was on the Civil War, and I met him in this tent where he was selling other books, and I was like, I think that's the dude who... And then I was like, you wrote that? And he was like, yeah. But anyway, he was a black man, and he was convinced that the whole thing had been misrepresented. So,
but one final, and if you, unless you're finishing your reason.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, so there's just one final little inaccuracy that I found when doing some preliminary reading on the internet about the historicity of this movie. It's simply that in the final battle, I mentioned this to you while we were right after the movie finished, or maybe during the movie, that in the final battle, when they're charging at Fort Wagner, they charge with the ocean on their left, and they're charging southward. However, in real life, in the real battle, in the real charge, they charge northward with the ocean on their right. So I don't know if they just like the filmmakers just like didn't care, or if they just like that was how they were. That's just how they set it up, where they built the fort, where they built the set.
Here's another comment. This isn't really a...
What do you think?
This isn't really a nitpick because it's more history than movie, but like they said that they needed to conquer that fort in order to take Charleston.
Yeah.
They took Charleston, but they never took the fort. So how necessary was it really?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I don't know.
That's so funny though, because this is our second movie we've reviewed recently, where it's all about like Charleston plays a very central theme, as it was very pivotal in the movie The Patriot. Not that Charleston doesn't play, I wouldn't say even plays pivotal, but it is.
It's in it.
Like they talk about taking Charleston.
Yeah.
In The Patriot, they refer to taking Charleston.
A couple rapid fire things that I saw that were inaccurate. This movie suffers from the bayonet disease, where they have bayonets on when they're shooting, and I demonstrated in the Patriot video that it is much harder to hold a rifle steady. When John will tell you, he tried. Or no, was it you?
I did too, and Oliver.
Yeah, him and Oliver both tried it, and it's much harder, and they do it to make it look cool. I understand. And then the other thing that happens with most of these movies is they have like this thing where everyone is reloaded always. Like, they address the fact that it's really hard to reload.
Yeah, I would like to get after you finish saying what you're saying. I'd like to get your thoughts on that scene because you really like to. You harp on like the reloading aspect and how hard that is.
It is difficult. It's not. I mean, it's not the craziest thing ever, but like.
Well, no, like to do it quickly and under fire. Especially.
It is, but about that is they will be like grappling and stuff, and then they'll just like turn around and they'll just shoot them, and it's like you just fired a vault. Like, how do you have another shot? How did you have time to reload?
I will say there's some combat in this movie that is very like modern day, where it's like they're just like. I mean, the realistic stuff is when they fire volleys and they're like batting people with their with their rifle butt.
Yeah, and they stab people.
However, there are some scenes. The combat scenes are great, but I mean they're embellished a little bit from like what they really would have been like. Because you'll have characters just like taking out a bunch of guys just all in succession, and a guy will just like swing his rifle and take out a guy. It's a bit embellished.
They almost shoot more in the melee than they do in the volley. They just keep shooting, and it's like how, but
Yeah, I know, yeah.
A quick note about bayonet charges, they were very rare.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the Patriot.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the Patriot, I read an account from a Prussian officer who joined the Confederate Army just because he loved war.
Is he the one that is then got in generals?
Yes. Yeah. And this guy, I can't remember his name.
Von Bork.
That's right. Herman von Bork.
Heros is like Heros. Heros von Bork.
That's right. And this man only heard of one bayonet charge ever happening in his entire career in the Civil War, which was very substantial.
Was it? Well, I'd be curious. Do you remember? Was it possibly could have been Stonewall Jackson's bayonet charge at the Battle of First Manassas?
I don't think so. I think it was in a skirmish.
That was certainly a bayonet charge.
No, yeah, there were bayonet charges, but they're rare, and that's not really a knock on this movie because they can't show the whole campaign.
The action scenes, like we said, are really well handled and cool. There were just a few moments where it's like, that probably didn't happen. He probably wasn't like acting. They do it in a way that's so like cool and just like in such a like a fluid way.
Yeah,
that it's
and
like that's
like,
a little bit unrealistic.
Yeah, and the fact that they can keep
Like-
shooting, it's kind of strange. I feel like the dudes with the muskets can shoot more often than the guy with the revolver.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's kind of a trope in movies of like the guy who gets the revolver in the bow, he just takes out a bunch of guys. There's this one Confederate dude though that like takes 6 bullets and still tackles the guy. He was
That was
not going down. Bro.
So, props
But
time.
yeah. Oh yeah, talk about just real quick. Oh, you can get your props, but once you get the gun,
The
talk about
reloading.
the reloading scene.
We can
I'd like
talk
to
about
hear
the
your
reloading.
thoughts on that.
So let me get my.
There's a great scene in the movie where this one guy, African American soldier who is a pretty good shot, is kind of shown that it's not so easy when you're under fire and that you got to be able to reload fast. And Nate's going to give us his thoughts on
Yeah,
that
I'm gonna
scene.
show you the.
And he's going to show us first a little bit of first hand.
I'm gonna show you the technical aspects of reloading.
Nate's always got the props.
Yeah, well, I've done this a few times.
Oh, here we go.
So,
This is all.
so I've never been shot at while in a battle line, but I did. I've stood in. I've been. I think the largest battle I ever went to was a few thousand people, and I've stood in battle lines and reloaded and shot gunpowder at people, and it got the whole experience of being like under fire. With the heat on you, and you can every now like. I've got sprayed by the gunpowder and stuff, and it doesn't feel great.
What does it feel like?
It's hot,
Okay.
and your ears are
Is it
ringing.
like from the guy next to you?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
from,
fire.
usually if you get sprayed, it's from it's this right here. Yeah, and then I mean you out of respect to the other reenactors, you shoot over their heads if you get close because you don't want to hurt them. But
You also don't use bayonet. Wait, no.
no, you don't. Yeah, obviously you don't stab
You
each other.
don't.
with
Well, no, but
bayonets.
you don't. Do you
You put them on for show.
Okay.
Before the battle.
There's one thing you said y'all don't do when loading.
Oh
There's
yeah,
one
we
when
don't
reloading
we don't ramrod.
Okay.
You don't
'Cause
because people have
people
shot
shoot.
ramrods at people. Yeah, so the first time I was in a battle, I started using the ramrod, and they were like, "Whoa!"
So
whoa.
what? So you what? I mean, give us like a demonstration. What
Yeah, so
exactly
I'll show
the
you.
process? You may have talked about it in the Patriot review, but
So
give
I'll
us like
stand
a-
up for just a second, because you're gonna start with the rifle over on this side, right? And so shoulder arms is when they pick it up with this hand here, boom. Now I'm at shoulder arms. They'll do other stuff like support arms, which is here. I don't know if you can see. I'll just sit down. This is support arms.
Now, why is there a difference between those two? Like, what is the? Is there some?
It's
kind
for
of
carrying. Like this is good for carrying.
And what's the?
This
shoulder
is
arms
good for just being ready to do
Okay.
whatever. This is like the starting position,
Okay.
and then you've got this is shoulder arms, and then
If you were doing a bayonet charge, isn't there a form where you get in like position?
I
or
never
do you
done
just
that.
like okay?
and then they'll do it like this.
What about over the back? Like over the
No,
back?
no, I've done it like this. Like usually,
Dude, you look really cool and do it. Real
Usually
quick.
you're
Do it
at-
real quick.
do
like,
what?
Like put it like where you
this.
like,
Well, I don't know why you would march like this though.
No, it's just funny.
Um,
That's how Heath Ledger in The Patriot is like first scene in the movie. He has like a gun over his
this is
back.
another carrying position. This one's a little bit
Jeez.
uncomfortable,
Yeah, what is
but
what is the point of
I
that?
like
It's
I like
sticking
I like
straight
the
into
I forget what they call this, left shoulder something.
Yeah.
It's nice because it's pinned between your head and your
Yeah.
shoulder, so it doesn't really move much.
How-
And then also port arms, which is like this. If I'm standing up, this is great. And then obviously you'll have to reload.
What's the exact order of like
Yeah, so I put it right. It's back here.
Mhm.
And first of all, what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab this is my ammo case. I'm gonna open it up. I'm gonna take out. I have a paper cartridge in here, but I'm not gonna use it because I don't want to actually fire. So you would open this guy up. You pour it down. In a real battle, you go ahead and bring that ramrod out because in a real battle, it would have included in the package a ball as well, and you need to ram the ball. So I'm gonna ram the ball. Boom, ramrod comes out.
Did you roll? But if you were doing it, would you really have to give it a little bit of force?
Oh,
or
yeah.
is it, okay, yeah.
But you don't want to give a lot of force if there's no ball because you can hurt the
Oh, yeah.
rifle.
Yeah.
And then after that's done, you gotta be up here.
This was all demonstrated in the movie by Shaw.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And so, after that, you're gonna go to half cock, which there's 2 stages on this hammer. You're gonna go to half cock, and once you're here, you gotta go and put a cap on it. Cap. So I got a cap on it. I do have a cap in here. Little cap on here, literally like a cap gun. So the fire mechanism of this rifle is going to be the spark's going to go into this porting hole and ignite the powder, which will send the projectile flying. Once it's loaded, you're going to take it to full cock and go back to what does that called? I just forgot.
I have no idea.
It's frick. I forgot.
How
I said
accurate?
it just a second ago. Yeah, it's very accurate. That's exactly how they do it.
So the scene in the movie is pretty accurate, where he's reloading. Like that's
Oh yeah, yeah. That's pretty much
he,
it.
he mentioned it while we were watching the movie. Edward Zwick directed both this and The Last Samurai, as we mentioned. And in both movies, you have a scene where a senior officer is like, I mean, they're a bit different, but in both scenes in the Glory and The Last Samurai, a senior officer is just like harping on this young recruit to like reload his weapon really fast. And obviously in The Last Samurai, Tom Cruise is like, shoot me. That doesn't happen in this movie, but still very similar.
Yeah, because Tom Cruise actually wants to die.
Yeah.
But
oh my god, dude, those stunts, bro.
they did their research on the drilling on this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wanted
so
to hear your
just
opinions on that.
some cool things that I noticed. If you noticed, that he asked them to count and rank.
Yes.
1, 2. So what that is for if you switch between 2 rows, which is battle formation, and then like a block of soldiers, which is like marching formation. And if you've counted off by rank, you can switch very easily. 1s are just going to pivot in whichever direction is asked, and then your 2s are going to step over and up, and then boom, you're in 2 lines, and then you do it back, you're in column. But you have to count off first.
Now, all the uniforms were pretty authentic looking.
Absolutely.
I'd say that most of them were reenactors, bro.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's another thing. They used reenactors in this because why wouldn't you? I could just go and tell you, like, you would cut off your production budget
I wonder,
so much.
you mentioned that there were some black reenactors. I wonder if some of them participated as black soldiers in this movie.
It
Probably
could be.
so.
No, yeah, there's more black reenactors who, honestly, there's not many black reenactors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that they, understandably have a bad taste in their mouth for this whole period. But those that do, I've seen more on the Union side, but there are some on the Confederate side. I've seen like 4, which is a low number, but also higher than I expected it to be. I saw some in the cavalry, I saw some in the infantry, and I saw that author who would go around wearing a bow tie with a Confederate flag
What
on
did you
it.
think about the drill instructor in the movie? Was that
He was fun.
Do you think he was pretty authentic to what a real drill, like a Civil War drill instructor would
Yeah.
be like?
Yeah, we once had a drill instructor who was a former Army officer. He wasn't that hard on us, but he was pretty hard on us, and my dad was so exasperated by it. We once had there was a dance after the battle, and we had to actually like guard the general. And we were all so mad because
Was there actually a general?
Yeah, there was like an actual general.
Who got to be the general?
I don't know, but like we had to guard the general, but like nobody's gonna attack the general. It's not real, so they go a little bit too far.
They were pretty extreme.
They can be a little bit extreme. There was this one time that the Union Army decided to attack our camp for fun, and everybody was like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" And it's like, they're doing exactly what we do on the field. Like, anyway, let's talk about the rifles. This is an 1862 Springfield rifle. This is you would not see this rifle very much during the Civil War. It was a Confederate weapon only. This was built in the Richmond Armories, and it is somewhat between a Enfield and a Springfield. Those were the 2 major rifles of the Civil War, were Enfields and Springfields. I've got a Springfield so I can show you.
Was the marching pretty authentic in the movie as well? Like
Definitely.
how they were teaching it and how they were
Definitely.
performing it?
This is an 1847 Springfield rifle, so this is a little bit pre-Civil War, but definitely would have seen use. The company that made that rifle is better than the company that made this rifle, so it's like this. The ramrod's not great, but it's still a really good replica, and this gives you an idea of what a Springfield might have looked like. Springfields were American made in the North, and they had this shiny chrome finish, which obviously got rusted a lot. They were longer, a little heavier, stuff like that. So, you saw a lot of these rifles, and then I don't have an Enfield rifle.
What did they say when they was the main issue rifle? Do you remember when they open up the case and he says, I'm forgetting what Morgan Freeman's character says.
He said Enfield.
Enfields, okay.
Yeah, so
That's which one of
that's the Springfield.
The last one you
So
said.
Enfields were
Oh, wait.
now reenactors actually prefer
That was a
Enfield.
Springfield.
Yeah,
Okay.
reenactors prefer Enfields because they have a black finish and they're easier to keep.
You do not have an Enfield.
I do not have an Enfield. I have a very similar looking rifle that can give you an idea.
No, which one of these is the one we brought on for the Patriot? Or
It was
that was another one.
the Richmond.
That was just another Richmond.
Yeah, no, it's the same.
Oh, the same Richmond. Gotcha.
Yeah, so this is a shortened version of a Enfield rifle that's called the Zouave, which was used towards the end of the war. It's only got 2 rings, so it's a short rifle.
Does that have something to do with the Zouave? Wasn't there like some troops that fought for the Union called Zouave?
That might be
red?
that might have something to do with it. I'm not sure about the history exactly, but this looks a lot like it functions a lot like an Enfield, though not exactly.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Could you refresh my memory? What was the main difference between like the Revolutionary? I know none of these go to the Revolutionary era.
Yeah.
So the one we showed on the Patriot View was just for demonstration.
Yeah,
We showed
it
something
was.
that was somewhat similar.
Right.
But you did say that rifle would have been the most. It's out of the ones you have is the most similar to probably what they might have used during the Revolution.
I'm sorry, that is really dirty. Ooh, that makes me cringe. I gotta clean that. I'm sorry. Oh, dang.
So what the Springfield? That's the one that we showed on the picture,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Oh, no, the Richmond.
the Richmond. So what is it about that? So they did not use.
Oh,
Richmonds
no.
during
I
the
showed the
Revolution.
Richmond for the bayonet, but the one that I showed that to demonstrate was
Yeah.
a Kentucky rifle.
And that would have been not one they would have used then.
No, but the
Revolution,
style was the same. So the
Okay.
only difference is the one that I showed during the Patriot video has a percussion cap action,
Okay.
when one during the Revolutionary War would have had a flintlock action.
Okay, that's right.
Right, and so the style of the rifle is
I
the
gotcha.
same. I gotta clean this, y'all. This is
It was
really
like that
bad.
disturbed you.
No, that deeply disturbed
What
me.
is you just feel like
I
a
can
bunch
feel,
of.
you can feel it. Yeah, it's like
I'm gonna feel it after
it's
this.
really bad. But it should feel hard, and this one feels like very spongy. It's not good.
Now, in the movie, they mentioned in the scene where Goldshaw was hammering into that soldier the reality of firing under fire.
Yeah.
He mentions that a good soldier can reload 3 times in 1 minute and get off 3 solid shots.
Mm-hmm. Most
That-
most
is
soldiers
that
can only do
accurate?
2 shots in a minute.
Oh, but
3
a really
shots
good
per
soldier
minute is
like
a good
really good.
Is a good soldier.
How
Yeah.
many? Honestly, like how many do you think you could
Probably
do?
2 a minute.
2.
Yeah.
So 2 is good. 3 is like really good.
Yeah.
But back in the Civil War, do you think it would have? He says it's expected of a soldier in the Union
They probably
Army
would have. That
to
probably would have
fire
been the
off the-
standard, but like, dude, in the
Yeah.
chaos of battle,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
doubt you would have.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and also like I don't shoot 3 per minute because I carry a limited amount of ammunition into battle,
Yeah.
and so you don't want to just like roast.
You said
your
basically
ammunition.
in reenactments, you just kind of die whenever you run out of ammo, right?
Yeah,
You don't want to die before you run out of.
No, yeah, you don't have to die if you don't want to. It's a very because like also like how could you tell who died? Like there've been different strategies that have been devised, and none of them really work very well. Like I heard a story one time about a reenactor commander who decided to yell months of the year whenever the enemy
Yeah.
did volleys.
You mentioned that to me.
Yeah, and so and whoever had a birthday that year, that month, would die because he wanted to look more realistic, and he didn't realize that like half of his regiment was born in August for some reason, and so there was this like tiny petering volley, and it was like pew 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 pew, pew and he goes August, and then like his whole regiment dies. Like,
Were you in the regiment?
no,
Are you
I
sure
heard
about
this story
Okay.
secondhand.
But, is there any other? Unless you have anything else to talk about with the rifles.
No, that's it with the rifles.
So is there any other? We have any?
Yeah, we got some
other
more
prop-
props.
Yep. And please tell us about any other historical details that you noticed that you really appreciated or anything. You definitely know more about that area.
We got a travel pack
Oh,
here.
this is cool.
Yeah, we got our blanket that goes on top, and tent parts would go underneath. You saw them wearing this. I like wearing this in about. Everybody's like, take that off. It's too heavy. But I'm like, oh, it's so cool. Can't not wear it.
That's pretty cool.
And then I've got
Oh yeah, that thing.
some canteens, which the only thought I have on these is that the canteens carry a lot more water than they look like they do. They're very efficient, and because like when you're in full,
Just the water tastes like real like metallic.
it does taste metallic. It's not that bad though.
Like honestly, I would think it would taste disgusting.
It's dude when
Like,
you're in,
no, I know if you're in the heat of combat.
yeah,
it
when you're in
tastes
90-degree weather in wool, then you will want water, no matter
good.
what
So
it
you
is.
would like put this over your. How would you put this over your shoulder?
This goes
or
on your
over
left side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So left side is for personal items and your canteen, and your right side is for your armament.
When fighting in a battle, though, what do you have? Like literally, wouldn't you just have your?
I had this on roll. This
When
is
fighting
supposed
in
to be
a
my right side.
pitched battle,
Yeah.
what would a soldier have on them?
So they would have their belts. So you got your combat belt, which has got your caps. I had a knife on this, but it fell out. It's got your knife, and then your bayonet over here.
Okay.
And then on the right side is also going to be your, because they're like armament's on right side. So this is actually going to be over here, my bayonet, and then got my ammo, and then
We gotta show the, of course, the
knapsack. This will have my personal items, and that goes on my left side. And then I have my canteen, which goes over it on my left side. So
No.
this
Okay.
is a setup that a soldier would carry
Okay.
into battle, and then of course they would wear their pack
Okay.
for long-term operations.
Okay. Now, is that one more prop we have over there?
Yeah, this is just a better jacket.
This is cool. That's the buttons and everything.
Yeah, this is my newest one. It's really great. It smells nice too.
Oh, that's
It does.
Is this like brand new?
No, it's not very. I've done battles in that one. Which my favorite Civil War hat actually isn't a kepi. It's called a bummer, and a bummer's like a kepi, except it's got a taller top that like.
So this would be obviously a Union Jack would just be blue.
Yeah. Check it out, man.
Pretty cool.
You like it?
Welcome, Stonewall Jackson.
Yeah, you look like Stonewall Jackson.
All
right.
My hair's growing though.
I think that concludes the history section.
Yeah.
We can get on to the themes.
Okay. Cool. Well, you got a lot of cool historical details there.
Yeah, and I think we should go over all that again if we do another.
Yeah, then we can come at it maybe from a different angle.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, so yeah, the history of this movie pretty good. There's obviously a few inaccuracies as I mentioned, but I think dramatic. The screenwriter has to sacrifice some historical accuracy for dramatic purposes.
I really appreciated this one scene where Denzel Washington's character is super angry and he's calling all of them N-words, and Morgan Freeman comes up and he's like, dude, I know that you've been oppressed, and you don't like the white men who are in the Union Army, but they've been dying for you for like a long time, and they deserve your respect as much as you deserve theirs. That was a great scene because in the end, I love equality, man.
Yeah.
I love equality. So respect for everyone, and Morgan Freeman in that. I love Morgan Freeman, at least what his thoughts used to be on race. I remember he was asked in this interview, he's like, how do we make racism go away? And he says, stop talking about it.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because I feel like we have made it into this huge conjecture, like this boogeyman. And honestly, I've lived in the South my whole life, and so has John.
Mm-hmm.
We get along really well here.
Oh yeah.
Us white folks and us black folks, we get along really well. That's not to say that racism doesn't exist,
Oh, yeah.
but I have never, and I've been all across the South. I've been to South Carolina, I've been to Virginia, I've been to Alabama, I've been to North Carolina, I've been all across Georgia. Never once, not even once, have I witnessed racism.
Alright, well, anyway, this movie certainly has lots of great period detail, and it's just a fun historical movie to watch. But anyway, let's finally move on to themes. What is there an overarching theme that you observed?
Themes.
I think that while you're thinking of yours, one of the primary themes of this movie is just like perseverance
Yeah.
on the part of the 54th.
Yeah,
I
perseverance.
think that there are these black soldiers who are very much looked down upon by most people, and
Yeah.
obviously in the South, but in the North as well. But a lot of officers in the Union Army just like don't care about them. They're used mainly for menial purposes once they get through their training, and yet throughout the whole movie they have to persevere and have a lot of mental fortitude to like continue doing what they're told. And at the same time, I think, eventually they get their chance, and in that moment, they make the most of it, and they obviously fight very bravely. So I think that their perseverance definitely pays off. But I think that's a theme of the movie.
Perseverance. That's a good one. That's a great. I mean, honestly, I could just be like a total nut and say glory is a theme,
Oh yeah.
but I don't think so. The funny thing is that this movie actually isn't much about glory at all.
Yeah. Well, I think I always wondered about the title of this movie for a while, and then I thought, well, it kind of is a theme because it's not really about personal glory. It's like these African Americans want glory for their like race. Like they want their race to experience some glory in the Civil War and be able to fight bravely on the battlefield. Mm-hmm. And they want that opportunity, and they want to be able to experience glory on the battlefield, mm-hmm. whatever that may mean to them.
Yeah.
So it definitely is a theme. But yeah, I mean, I like the title. I think it kind of definitely is a movie. It's a good title, like get people to come see the movie. Like that's glory. Yeah. What's a theme that you shot?
You could bravery.
Yeah. I think a theme is morality because I think the
that's
character.
exactly the word I was looking for. That's exactly.
Especially with the character of Robert Gould Shaw.
I couldn't quite find the word, but John's right. It's morality.
Mm-hmm.
So you can continue.
I'll say and piggyback off me. I think the main you see this mainly in the character I think of Robert Gould Shaw.
Yeah.
Because he's this guy who doesn't. He's a very upright and upstanding citizen and a soldier, and he wants to really help these African Americans. However, he knows that to do so, he has to, in his mind, I think, kind of sacrifice some of his morality and kind of treat them as more soldiers instead of friends. Because a lot of the soldiers in the regiment, or especially the nerdy guy, was like his best friend growing up.
Yeah, that's another theme, discipline.
Yeah, I know. We could talk about that in a minute. But I think that... But throughout the movie, Robert Gould Shaw just has to deal with like morality in several different ways. I think in that, especially with like his superior officers, he's obviously forced to burn this village, but he knows it isn't right, and that's a real interesting scene because he does do it under like protest basically, but he kind of has to like come to terms like with the idea that he can't really forsake the lives of his regiment because his regiment will be they'll all be kind of cast away if he doesn't follow his orders. But I think he just has to he faces the kind of the dilemma of morality multiple times in the movie.
Yep, and then discipline.
Oh yeah.
Discipline because Shaw has to exert discipline in order to keep his friends safe, even when they hate him for it.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
And it saves their lives.
Leadership kind of goes along with that.
Leadership. Like, he is a young man that's put in this position, and he has to exhibit very strong leadership. And it makes people not like him sometimes.
Yeah, especially his friend, or his friend, the black man, I'm forgetting his name, but the nerdy guy.
Yeah,
Thomas. But also his buddy, Cabot, who played by Cary Elwes. I think that's one part about Elwes' character that I did like. I didn't like that he didn't grow and change more, but I think that his his characteristic of like not understanding why Shaw has to be so like kind of like not brutal, but like just strict with the men. He doesn't understand that. And Shaw basically tells him that, in that one scene that, I'm in charge of these men. I'm supposed to look after them, and I have to get them prepared, even if they don't end up fighting.
It's tough love.
Yeah.
Like, at one point, Thomas wants to speak with him, and he's like, you
Yeah.
you have to get permission to speak with a superior officer. And then he had been crying, he'd been losing it, and you see him when he gets that answer,
Yeah.
he takes a breath, and he sucks it up.
Yeah, I know.
And that's exactly what he needed in that moment. He needed to learn
Yeah.
to suck it up a
I
little
love the line. Speaking of that character, which by the way, that guy gave a great performance. I think he's gone on to have a good career. I believe his name's Andre Broughton, but he gave a great performance as Thomas. I love to go on what you were saying about how he needed to kind of grow up throughout the movie, and he had moments where he really did. He became a soldier.
Yeah.
Like that moment you were referring
did.
to. I think the Irish drill sergeant has a great line where basically Thomas is like complaining to Shaw, and then Shaw's like she was my childhood friend. He tells the Irish sergeant. We grew up together, and because he's feeling bad about having to treat Thomas just like less like his friend and more like a soldier in the regiment. And the Irishman says, "We'll let him grow up a little more." and I mean that's true. I mean the drill sergeant is brutal, but I mean he does his job.
Yeah, and I think this movie all around exhibits great morals. Morals of equality and of toughness, and like. These dudes in this regiment, they're pretty dang tough because of what they've been through under the oppression of slavery. Like, this guy is just yelling in their ear and going crazy on them, and they deal with, like, I feel like people these days, if like you rounded up a bunch of random people and put them in a regiment like that, like they would just like fall apart.
Yeah. But these guys had that. I think camaraderie is the thing.
Camaraderie.
I mean, Robert Goldshaw mentions in his letters so many times that he narrates these letters throughout the movie he talks about how the blacks have such a great camaraderie with one another. Like at nighttime, they all sing and they all talk with one another, and that's because many of them have probably grown up together. Sometimes some of them in slavery, and. Camaraderie is a great theme in this movie. I love how we talked about character arcs, and like how, I love how there's certain characters in the regiment that aren't friends at the beginning, and they don't like each other. The nerdy guy Thomas and Trip do not like each other. However, by the end of the movie, they come to have respect for one another, and honestly, they can end up kind of bringing out the best in each other. Because Trip, played by Denzel Washington, he's always causing trouble and stuff. And that kind of, I think, makes Thomas more of a man, because Thomas learns that to stand up to him, and so I really love the dynamic between their two characters. But camaraderie is definitely a theme of the movie.
Well, I think that about sums it up.
Yeah. There's probably lots of other themes we could go into, but I think those are some of the big ones.
Dude, honestly, with all of the controversy that swirls around the Civil War, we're probably going to get more comments on this than normal, which don't do too many comments because we're breaking the algorithm, y'all, and it's just the mind-boggling amount of comments and just subscribers we get. Don't comment, don't subscribe. We've done it's too much, guys. I know you love hearing us talk, but seriously.
At the same time, though, do subscribe and smash the like button. Anyway, let's move on to final thoughts.
Thoughts.
Give us your final thoughts, Nate. Give us a rating.
This movie, it comes from a different time when movies were made about good morals, and featured things like, good morals. And this movie impressed me. I thought it was going to be bad, and it was actually good. It won me over.
What were you? You said you were expecting more of a preachy movie.
I was expecting a preachy movie that was very one-dimensional.
And villainized the opposite side.
Exactly. And I did not get that at all. This movie was great. This movie, I think, it's hard for it to stand up against all the insanely good movies we've been watching. Yeah. This movie probably earns a 7.7 with me.
Yeah. So, but it's a solid good movie.
It's a solid good. And on this scale, guys, the unfortunate thing is that with the horrible movies that have been coming out recently, we have negatives are a thing now.
Yeah. So
7.7 is actually higher than it sounds like because there's -5 at least now.
Yeah. So for me, I think my final thoughts on this movie. So. This movie is definitely a classic Civil War movie. There's so much great period detail in this movie. It really takes the history seriously, and I think the filmmakers really took, felt a responsibility in telling this story because it is based on a true story. Robert Goldschar really did live, and he really did die leading this regiment. And I think it really benefits from that respect for historical accuracy. But it also just has great battle scenes and some really good dialogue and emotional moments, great cinematography. We kind of had to nitpick really to find a lot of. There weren't any big negatives.
They didn't shy away from any of the hard parts of history.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they really confronted it.
They didn't shy away from, for example, the harsh reality of slavery, or the fact that the Union Army burnt and pillaged.
Yeah, I know. I love this movie. It's from the Union perspective, but the Union as a whole isn't necessarily portrayed as a good. Mm-hmm. There's flawed people throughout the whole movie, like officers and. There's all these different, racist characters, and there's that guy who burns the village, and it's a very nuanced movie. It hits on, it kind of shows these different perspectives, and really shows that the Civil War isn't what we make it out to be.
There's a lot of
people from the South or the North. There's more to it than meets the eye.
There really is. It's a complex. People. Yeah. More than anything, people try to simplify this war when it was not a simple affair. Yeah. It was not.
Anyway, so this movie did a great job of being nuanced and showing all kinds of different, perspectives, just specifically in this movie within the Union Army. And, it's a really cool look at one of my favorite time periods in history. It's a perspective that we don't often get, It's a cool real-life story. And as we did with The Last Samurai, what's your message for Edward Zwick? My rating, I give this an 8 out of 10. It's a really good movie.
For Edward Zwick.
We did it once, we gotta do it again.
Good movie, Edward.
Oh my word.
Yeah, this is obviously it's better than anything I could ever make. It's a really solid, great movie.
Well, we'll have to review. He's done some other good historical movies as well. That we can review. He did Blood Diamond, and then he also did a movie. He did Legends of the Fall.
Oh, wow.
That would kind of be a stretch. We could probably include that in historical genre. But anyway, we'll probably review some more Edward Zwick movies. But so far, the both of them have been good.
Thanks for doing your homework, Edward.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, Edward.
Yeah, I know.
Now goodbye, Edward, and everyone else.